In the quaint village of St. Elmwood, nestled between the gentle swells of green hills and shadowed by ancient, whispering woods, there lay a peculiar curse that had plagued the Hartley family for generations. The legend, as old as the village itself, was whispered from one generation to the next. A story so chilling that it mingled with the fog that often blanketed the sleepy streets at dawn. The Hartleys owned a grand estate at the edge of the village, known for its sprawling gardens and a collection of statues, both majestic and eerie. Among them, a series of statues depicting various saints stood sentinel, their stone eyes seemingly watching over the estate. But it was the statue of St. Jude, the patron saint of lost causes, that held the darkest allure. As the story went, the curse began with Bartholomew Hartley, an ancestor who had brought the statues back from a pilgrimage across Europe. Since then, tragedy struck any member of the Hartley family who dared to remove or damage the statues. Accidents, disappearances, even deaths occurred with eerie regularity, always following an incident with the statues. Eleanor Hartley, the latest matriarch, had grown up listening to the tales of woe and had wisely kept her distance from the statues. Her only son, Thomas, however, was a curious and skeptical young man, recently returned from university, filled with modern ideas and little belief in old village superstitions. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Thomas, spurred by a mixture of skepticism and bravado, decided to challenge the old curse. With his closest friends from the village, he ventured into the garden under the light of a full moon, determined to prove the curse false. They approached the statue of St. Jude. Its face, worn by time and moss-covered, seemed almost sorrowful under the moonlight. The air grew inexplicably cold as Thomas laid his hands on the statue, his friends holding their breaths in a mixture of fear and anticipation. "See, nothing to," he began, but before he could finish, a harsh, grinding noise cut through the night. The ground beneath them trembled, and without warning, the earth gave way. Thomas and his friends fell into a newly opened sinkhole, swallowed by darkness as screams echoed through the night air. Miraculously, all but Thomas emerged from the hole with minor injuries. The village rallied to rescue him, digging through the night under the eerie glow of lanterns. As dawn approached, with no sign of Thomas, his mother, Eleanor, arrived at the scene, her face pale and drawn, eyes wide with a terror that spoke of ancient fears reignited. "He's still down there, with them," she whispered, her voice trembling. The villagers exchanged uneasy glances, the old stories surfacing in their minds, chilling their hearts with the fear that perhaps the curse was not just a story after all. As the sun rose, casting light over the desperate scene, the effort to reach Thomas continued. But deep below, in the shadows beyond the reach of the villagers' lanterns, Thomas found himself in a cavern unknown to the maps of the village. The walls were lined with carvings, ancient and intricate, depicting scenes of saints and sinners, heaven and hell. And there, in the flickering light of his dropped flashlight, stood another statue, one not accounted for in the family's collection. It was an angel, its face a mixture of benevolence and severity, holding a scale in one hand. As Thomas stared at it, frozen by a mix of awe and fear, the statue's eyes seemed to meet his, and a voice, deep and resonant, filled the cavern. "Judgment has not yet passed," it intoned, and the tale of the Hartley curse unfolded anew. As the voice echoed off the walls of the cavern, Thomas felt a chill ripple through his body. The statue's eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light, held him in place, a palpable force that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. The air around him thickened, and the sense of an unseen presence filled the cavern, pressing in on him from all sides. Above ground, the rescue operation grew more frantic. Eleanor, knowing the old tales better than most, instructed the villagers to retrieve the other statues from the garden. One by one, the statues of the saints were carefully carried and placed around the sinkhole's edge, a makeshift circle of stone figures, each with its own story of sorrow, formed a silent guard. Back in the cavern, the statue's voice continued, its tone somber yet commanding. "The balance of your lineage is askew, Thomas Hartley. Your family has taken much and given little in return. The debt of the past is due." Thomas, struggling to comprehend, asked, "What debt? What do you want from me?" "The statues were not merely stone," the voice replied. "They were a covenant between your ancestors and the divine. Each figure a keeper of promises made and broken. To lift the curse, a balance must be restored, a sacrifice made." As the words sank in, the ground trembled once more, small stones and dirt cascading down from above. Thomas felt his heart race, his mind scrambling for a solution that might save him and end his family's torment. "Tell me what I need to do," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Above him, the statues seemed to react, the air growing colder, as if in anticipation. Eleanor, standing among them, felt a sudden gust of wind, and the statue's eyes appeared to glimmer briefly with an otherworldly light. She shivered, wrapping her arms around herself, sensing that whatever was happening below was reaching a critical point. "You must choose," the statue below spoke again to Thomas. "Sacrifice what has never been sacrificed, or bear the curse unto the next generation. The choice will mark the fate of the Hartley line forever." Thomas felt overwhelmed by the weight of the decision. The idea of passing the curse on was unbearable, yet the nature of the sacrifice demanded was unclear and daunting. He needed more time, more understanding. "Can I have time to decide?" he asked tentatively. "The dawn of the third day from now will be your deadline," the statue replied, its voice fading as if receding into the depths of the earth. "Choose wisely, Thomas Hartley, for the scales must be balanced." The voice ceased, leaving Thomas in silence, save for the distant sounds of digging and shouting from above. He sat down, his back against the cold stone, staring at the statues around him. Each face seemed to tell a story of centuries, of other Hartleys who had faced the curse and failed to end it. Above, as the first day broke, Eleanor and the villagers continued their efforts, unaware of the ultimatum given to Thomas. Their faces were etched with worry and determination, a community united by folklore and fear, their fates intertwined with the decision looming in the darkness below. As the hours turned into days, the villagers worked tirelessly, the sound of their efforts a constant echo in the cavern where Thomas remained trapped. With each passing moment, the weight of his impending decision pressed heavier upon him. He was caught in a battle between despair and resolve, the legacy of his family's curse challenging his every thought. Above ground, Eleanor remained vigilant by the sinkhole, her presence a silent sentinel amidst the murmurs of concern and the occasional prayers whispered by the older villagers. She couldn't shake the feeling that the statues around them were more than just observers. They were participants in whatever was unfolding. On the morning of the third day, as the dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Thomas made his decision. He stood up, his resolve hardened by the days of isolation and reflection. He called out into the darkness, "I have made my choice. I will not let this curse continue to torment my family or this village. Tell me what must be sacrificed." The air in the cavern stirred, and the angelic statue before him seemed to pulse with a faint, otherworldly glow. The sacrifice required is your willingness to forsake the earthly for the spiritual. The voice echoed again, this time with a gentleness that hadn't been there before. Your family has been bound to material wealth and status, ignoring the deeper callings of the soul. You must commit to a life of service and humility, forsaking the heartly fortune and dedicating your existence to the betterment of others. Thomas felt a mix of relief and shock. The sacrifice was not of life, but of lifestyle, a complete renunciation of everything his family had held dear for generations. It was a monumental shift, but one he was prepared to make. Above ground, as he voiced his acceptance of the terms, the statues surrounding the sinkhole suddenly shifted. The ground began to tremble, not with the threat of collapse, but as if something within was realigning. The villagers stepped back in awe as the sinkhole began to close itself, the earth moving as though guided by an unseen hand. Thomas, feeling the ground solidify beneath him, rushed towards the light filtering down from the surface. He emerged from the closing ground just as the last gap sealed shut, his appearance causing a gasp to ripple through the crowd. Eleanor rushed forward, embracing her son tightly, tears of relief streaming down her face. As mother and son stood reunited, the villagers watched in silent reverence, the statues around them now seemingly at peace, their stony gazes softened. In the weeks that followed, Thomas upheld his promise. The vast Hartley estate was transformed into a community center, its gardens open to the public and its resources redirected to support the needy. Thomas worked tirelessly, his life now a testament to the power of change and sacrifice. But the story doesn't end there. As the village prospered under Thomas's new direction, strange tales began to emerge. Visitors to the estate spoke of the statues, their expressions seeming to change with the passing days, from solemn to serene, as if they too were part of the transformation. And at night, some claimed to see the figure of a glowing angel wandering the gardens, a guardian of the new covenant between the Hartleys and the higher powers they had once defied. The curse of the Hartley family was lifted, but the mysteries of St. Elmwood and its guardian statues continued to intrigue and inspire, a reminder that some legends never truly end, they only transform. Thank you for listening to my channel.